What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at Mortal Kombat Legends Snowblind, the third installment into the animated series of movies. Alright, let's waste no time, let's get right into it. I overall really enjoyed Mortal Kombat Legends Snowblind. I think this movie is a vast improvement over Battle of the Realms, mainly because unlike that movie, this movie doesn't try to shove so many different storylines into one movie to the point where a lot of things had to get trimmed down and just cut down and just came across as just forced. Snowblind is a more intimate story that is focused. This movie's focus is that on the origin of Kenshi and that of Kuai Liang, who is now an older version of Kuai Liang. And I think for the most part, this movie did a really good job at telling these two dual stories. And I also like the idea of Kano getting his respect as the big bad of this movie. What makes Mortal Kombat, like I said, what makes this movie work is the fact that it's very small scale. It has a singular goal. It doesn't try to have this end of the world plot where it shoves in so many different things. I think for the most part, it tells the origin story of Kenshi fairly close to how he was in the video games, with him being duped by Shang Tsung, who has become a feeble old man who is pretty much at the mercy of Kano, who is the supreme ruler of the wasteland. This movie takes place decades after the events of the second movie, where these creatures known as the Revenants have come to Earthrealm, pretty much destroyed everything, turning it into a wasteland very reminiscent of Mad Max, and pretty much Kano has picked up the pieces as the ruler of the wasteland, no different than villains in Mad Max like the Toe Cutter, Lord Humongous, and Immortan Joe. Before I go on, the whole Mad Max aesthetic of this movie, I love it. I think it's awesome. This movie, you can clearly tell by watching Snowblind, it's very, very, very heavily influenced by Mad Max and of the Old Man Logan storyline, which I will get into relatively quickly. Anyway, like I said, this movie closely follows Kenshi's origin from the video games. He's a prideful yet very skilled warrior, but he's very full of himself. He's so self-confident that he can beat anybody. He comes across Shang Tsung, who is posing as this old man named Song, and he leads Kenshi to the Well of Souls. Of course, as those familiar with Kenshi's story from the video games, he opens up the Well of Souls. He gets overwhelmed by all the souls that were trapped inside, and he gets blinded. Of course, Shang Tsung, being the devious son of a bitch that he is, he consumes all these souls to restore his youth as a way for him to overthrow Kano. Of course, this leaves Kenshi blind. However, Kenshi comes across the sword known as Sento, in which the souls of his ancestors are in said sword. And it's with Sento where he has like this... and Sento kind of gives him like this radar vision, like sonar vision, no different than Daredevil. So all that is relatively close to his origin of the games, with some differences. In the games, Sub-Zero is not really a mentor to Kenshi, but in this movie he is, and I like it. And this brings me to how they handled Kuai Liang, the younger brother of Bihan, who has now become an older, aged version of himself. Basically, Kuai Liang's story in this movie mirrors that of Logan in the Old Man Logan story comic book arc, in which Kuai Liang led the Lin Kuei into a town with the intent to rid it of revenants, but and Kuai Liang lost control of his power, and he ended up killing innocent people along with his clan. And from that moment on, he chose to never use that power again. This is no different than Logan, in which Logan was tricked by Mysterio to kill a bunch of villains, and in the end, Logan ended up unknowingly killed his teammates and friends. And from that moment on, Logan vowed to never use his power ever again. Like, very close, it's heavily either ripped off or inspired, depending on how you want to view it. To me, inspired. And I think Kuai Liang was a good character to use this with, because Kuai Liang, he was always, he was more younger than Bihan, not as disciplined as Bihan, but he eventually became that. And like Kenshi, Kuai Liang had a lot of pride and was very self-assured until something happened to him that pretty much humbled him in a way. A la Kenshi. I like how the Kuai Liang and Kenshi stories, they paralleled one another. The student and the mentor. almost father-son relationship that I thought was handled really, really, really well. I liked it a lot. Sub-Zero and Kenshi are the two best characters in this movie. They got a good relationship, and I like it a lot. In terms of how this movie handled Shang Tsung, it was going in a good direction. And I like how the movie did not ultimately use Kano as a setup villain to just sell you on, and then it was going to be Shang Tsung as the villain. Kano is still the villain through and through. But the way they handled Shang Tsung once he got his powers back, I thought was a complete letdown. So pretty much Shang Tsung gets his powers back with the intent to overthrow King Kano, who pretty much since the Wasteland became a thing, has pretty much assembled his own his Black Dragon clan. You get Aaron Black, Kira, Cobra, Cabal, of course. Resident Jobber, Jarek. So pretty much King Kano has the Black Dragon clan. They're running amok all over the Wasteland, and he has Shang Tsung, the former powerful sorcerer, as his little lapdog, his little lackey. Now that Shang Tsung's got his power, he wants to overthrow Kano. Okay, cool. The movie has now built in the idea that now that Shang Tsung's back to being full force, he's going to easily wipe out Kano. But it's not as easy as it is, because Kano ends up overpowering Shang Tsung. Now, this is where I think the movie had wasted potential. So we already established that Shang Tsung tricked Kenshi. So obviously Kenshi is going to want to get payback on Shang Tsung. All the while, Shang Tsung wants to get payback on Kano. You got the hero who wants to take out the villain, and you got a villain who wants to take out another villain. So I still would do the whole thing of Kano overpowering Shang Tsung, and now that Shang Tsung's got full power, I would have had Kano used a fully restored Shang Tsung to his advantage. Instead, what this movie did is it killed off Shang Tsung unceremoniously. Kano just overpowered Shang Tsung, just killing him, ripping his head off. I would not have done that. I think that's a wasted potential. You could have had Kano use Shang Tsung to Kano's own benefit, now that Shang Tsung's got his powers back. Or you could have gone in a completely different direction. You could have had Kano beat the shit out of Shang Tsung, leave him for dead, and then you have Shang Tsung reluctantly join forces with Sub-Zero and Kenshi to take down a much bigger threat in Kano. Like almost in a way, turning one of Mortal Kombat's best villains not into an anti-hero, but somebody who reluctantly has to team up with his foes to take down a greater villain, while all the while still building up the eventual fight between Kenshi and Shang Tsung. That's what I would have done. I think that would have made for a much more interesting story, as opposed to what ended up happening as the movie went on, which is not bad, but it could have been. But I think with the element of Shang Tsung still being alive and being forced to team with Sub-Zero, Kenshi, and Scorpion at the end, would have led to a much more interesting third act. So with all that being said, as the film progresses, Kenshi is now blind. He goes to Kuai Liang. At first, Kuai is hesitant to train Kenshi, take him under his wing, given Kuai's past and what happened to him. But he eventually gives in, and he starts to help Kenshi, Kenshi and train his senses with the Sento Blade, which he eventually does. This leads to Kenshi stumbling along a town being ravaged by Kano and his forces, and Sub-Zero refusing to go and help, while Kenshi wants to. Kenshi lost his pride, but he has his honor now, and he's not going to stand idly by while defenseless people get slaughtered, while he can do something about it. But Sub-Zero refuses. So Kenshi goes to the fight. He gets overpowered by Kano and his forces. This causes Kuai Liang to pick up the mantle of Sub-Zero again, while all the while now being joined by Scorpion. And of course, this leads to the third act, where Kenshi, Sub-Zero, and Scorpion join forces to fight Kano and the Black Dragon, in which it's done in a glorious way. Like the last two movies, this movie does not skimp out on that classic over-the-top Mortal Kombat violence. This is a bloody, gory movie, and when you watch this movie, a lot of arms get severed. A lot of arms and heads get severed in this movie. It's great. It's gory fun. But we get to the final battle, which ends up taking place in Kronika's Hourglass. And, of course, Kronika, who is a villain from Mortal Kombat 12, who can control time and stuff like that. But it's revealed that Kano has possession of this Hourglass. And pretty much the movie we were watching is basically... So, Snowblind is basically an extension of Kano's Mortal Kombat 12 ending, where he pretty much makes himself the ruler of everything. So I kind of like that. I kind of like how we have more or less a Elseworlds story with this, and I think you can actually do more with this concept if they chose to go down that route, like expand upon certain endings from Mortal Kombat 12. Now that the time traveling hourglass has been established in this animated movie continuity. But Sub-Zero and Kano end up having their final fight with Kano, being defeated. Of course, you have Tremor, who's in this movie. He has his final battle with Kenshi, and you have Scorpion taking on Cabal, and they have a nice little riff. Now, like I said, I would have had Shang Tsung in this final battle. It should have been, Shang Tsung and Kenshi teaming up together to take down Tremor, which I thought would have been pretty cool to see. Still having Scorpion Cabal do their little thing. But once Kano's overall defeated, then you have Kenshi and Shang Tsung do their more personal battle. Like, Kenshi gets to have a chance to redeem himself, to get his revenge, but he spares Shang Tsung, learning from Kuai Liang, who chose not to have revenge consume him. Sparing Shang Tsung's life, but also saying that if Shang Tsung were to come back again, it won't be so different next time around. Setting up Shang Tsung to come back again as a villain. That's what I would have done, personally. Like, Shang Tsung gets his revenge. Kenshi has a chance for revenge, but he chooses not to take that revenge, wanting to be more of an honorable warrior and not a bloodthirsty warrior. All the while, Shang Tsung will disappear into the night, planning to attack once again. That's how I would have handled it. But in the ending we got, once Kano gets defeated, Sub-Zero basically leaves with Scorpion, pretty much, behesting to Kenshi to reform the Lin Kuei, since Kenshi was trained as Lin Kuei. I like it. So, yeah. Those are my overall thoughts on Mortal Kombat Legends. It's an overall really good movie. I enjoyed it. Better than the second, I should say. The voice acting is on point. David Winham, who voices Kano, is a lot of fun. Ron Yun, who voiced Scorpion in the Mortal Kombat 12 video game, voices Sub-Zero. I thought it puts in a great performance as an older Sub-Zero. The actor who played Kenshi did a really good job at capturing his cocky personality and then morphing and maturing as the film progressed. Art Butler, who voiced Shang Tsung the last two movies, comes back as Shang Tsung with this, and I thought it was a good job as well. Patrick Steitz, the voice of Kano, returns for this and also does a good work when Scorpion comes in the third act. And all the other voice actors do a good job as well. And like I said, the animation style to this movie is actually really, really good, being heavily influenced by the Mad Max franchise, which I like. The flashback scenes thought were well handled. We get cameos from characters like Nightwolf, Draman, Aaron Black. Like I said, Kira, Cobra, and Tremor have their own little things going on in this movie, as with Cabal. So we get a lot of good stuff. But like I said, there are certain story elements I would have changed, which I thought would have made the movie much better than what it was. Before what we got, I liked Snowblind. I think it's an overall solid movie. I like the scaled down threat of it, meaning almost gets to a worldwide event once the hourglass gets introduced, but it still maintains the small scale personal story, which I enjoyed and which I liked. So with all that being said, Mortal Kombat Legends Snowblind for me gets a solid 8 out of 10. I enjoyed this movie. Well, let me know your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.